Okay, good afternoon. Last time we have seen applications of robots related to machining, related to material handling, related to welding, etc. Now today we will see other applications of robots. Now the applications of robots explained above are basically tasks above means material handling, machining, welding in that includes spot welding and arc welding. These tasks are performed by human beings. However, the present day robots are also used in medical surgery, space explorations, and others, which are explained next. Therefore, medical robots. Already, these medical robots, space, and whatever others are there, that videos or that photographs we have seen. Therefore, I have not added any photographs here, only description is there. Therefore, medical robots have found applications mainly in surgery. It is a highly interactive process and many surgical decisions are made in the operating room. The goal of surgical robots is not to replace the surgeon with a robot, but to provide the surgeon with a new set of very versatile tools that extend his or her ability to treat patients. Hence, medical robotic systems are surgical assistants that work cooperatively with surgeons. A special subclass of these systems is often used for remote surgery. Currently, there are two main varieties of surgical assistant robot are available. The first variety, surgeon extender, is controlled directly by the surgeons. They augment or supplement the surgeon's ability to manipulate surgical instruments during surgery. The promise of these systems is that they can give even average surgeons superhuman capabilities such as elimination of hand tremor or ability to perform dexterous operations inside the patient's body, etc. As a result, casualty rates are reduced and operative times are shortened. The second variety, auxiliary surgical support, generally works side by side with the surgeon and performs such functions as endoscope, holding, or retraction. These systems typically provide one or more direct control interfaces such as joysticks, head trackers, voice control, or the like. However, the surgeon should be attentive during their use. For example, while using robot vision to keep the endoscope aimed at an anatomic target. Note that initial surgical robotic systems in the 1980s employed general purpose industrial manipulators either directly or with minor modifications. Industrial robots are still being used today as research and validation tools where immediate clinical use is not contemplated or specialized kinematic design is not essential. Surgical robots must be compatible with the operating theater. The robot must have sufficient strength, accuracy, and dexterity for its intended use. It must be placed where it can work on the patient while also allowing access by clinical staff. Usually, this is done by mounting the robot to the operating table or placing it on the floor beside the patient. However, ceiling mounts and attachment to the patient are occasionally used. Therefore, this is nothing but use of robots in medical field. Now, mining in order to enhance productivity, access unworkable mineral seams, and reduce human exposure to the inhospitable environment of dust, noise, gas, water, moving equipment, and robots are used. In coal mining, roof and pillar mining is accomplished by repetition of a well-defined cycle of putting coal, removing coal, and supporting the roof. When a robot is used, the ability to maneuver it in highly constrained corridor like environments and to accurately cutting coal is required. Data from the laser range scanner can be used to model the environment and to compute the position of the robot. Now, space exploration. Already, all these applications we have seen in service robots. When I have discussed the point service robot, at that time I have shown you all the pictures. These are nothing but service robot. Space explorations of the planets, moons, and other near bodies in space are a clear goal of for the International Space Service Space Center community or Space Service community. A robotic approach to explore these bodies has the benefit of being able to achieve many of the things a human could do, but at lower cost without endangering human life. To be effective, such robotic systems must be versatile and robust, with cost reduction becoming increasingly important. There are a variety of tasks that the robots can do in space, including space manipulation, that is servicing equipment in space, surface mobility, planetary exploration. You are knowing that this NASA has sent that robot or that wheeled robot on the Mars. Also, whatever India has also tried to send that robot or whatever that for the moon exploration, but our that moon exploration it failed due to some reasons. You are knowing that Pathfinder was there, it was crushed or it lost its track before reaching just before reaching the moon. Therefore that is nothing but one type of robot also. And robotic colonies, that is outposts that are either self-sustaining or preparatory for human colonies. In addition, robots may perform scientific experiments that include sample and return of planetary atmosphere, manipulating the environment, moving rocks, drilling, etc., testing the composition of the atmosphere, and other tests using arbitrary scientific equipment. Means you can use drone also. Drone is also one type of robot. There are three characteristics that a robot should have for space missions. First, compactness and lightness. The cost of sending robot into space is directly correlated to its size and weight. Then robustness. Missions often have only one attempt to succeed. Then versatility and adaptability. In exploration, where the environments are inherently unknown, adaptability must be high to increase the chance of success. Therefore, these three characteristics must have. Then next is underwater. Underwater applications of robots involve prospecting for minerals on the floor of the ocean. For example, nodules of manganese, salvaging of sunken vessels, and repair of ships either at sea or in dry dock. In the latter case, a prototype version of a mobile robot that is used to clean barnacles from the sides of ships has been built and tested in France by a shipbuilding company. This rather remarkable tripod is capable of moving in either air, that is above the waterline, or in water. It grips the ship's sides with both vacuum and magnetic feet, a technique that has proven to be reliable. The scrubbing action is produced by a rotating brush mounted on the end of a rotary axis arm. Therefore, this is nothing but for underwater exploration. Then next is defense. The defense people, namely the Air Force and Navy, are both interested in mobile firefighters. These devices are equipped with infrared sensors, and could react more quickly than people in an emergency and in extremely hazardous situations. Other defense applications of robots will be on the battlefield itself, although it is not inconceivable that robots might somebody be used to fight other robots. More realistic short-term applications from the defense point of view would be in the areas of surveillance. For example, guard and sentry duty, mine sweeping, and artillery loading devices. The application of robots for surveillance and guard duty can be in power generating plants, oil refineries, and other large civilian facilities that are potential targets of the terrorist groups. The robots for these applications would probably be mobile, running on wheels, treads, or tracks, equipped with some form of vision system and other types of sensors, for example, infrared, and even have defensive and or offensive capability. In fact, several police forces, for example, those in New York City and in London, have already employed prototypes of this class of robots for bomb disposal. Therefore, this is the application of robot in defense. Now, this is the all nothing but applications of robots. Now, we have to consider robot economics and safety. When we are going to implement this robotic system in the factory or in defense or in medical or in space exploration, we have to consider economic aspect. Economic means money associated with robots implementation and safety issues associated with robot usage. Therefore, robot economics, the success of any commercial undertaking has to be measured in terms of financial performance. See that this is very important statement. Everywhere finance comes into picture. The most brilliant technical innovation is a failure if it results in money lost by the entrepreneur or his shareholders. Robots are no exception to this rule. No matter what the social benefits are, no matter how clever the technology, no matter how pretty the robot is to watch, every proposed investment in robotics has to pass the test of a critical financial appraisal. The following headings provide a framework for management to analyze the costs and benefits of the robotics installation. First is purchase price of the robot. The purchase price of a robot is highly variable, particularly if one definition of robot includes simple pick and place devices with few articulations. The range might extend from rupees 10 lakh to rupees 50 lakh, depending upon the number of articulations, operating area, weight handling capacity, and control sophistication. Generally speaking, the higher priced robots are capable of more demanding jobs, and their control sophistication assures that they can be adapted to new jobs when original assignments are completed. So the more expensive and more sophisticated robot will normally require less special tooling and lower installation cost. Special tooling. Special tooling for a robot may include an indexing conveyor, wheeled guns, transformers, clamps, and a supervisory computer for a complex task of robots. For example, in the spot welding of car bodies. For assembly automation, the special parts may cost well in excess of the robot equipment costs. Now next is installation. Installation cost is sometimes charged fully to a robot project, but is often carried as overhead because plant layout changes. As a model change, there are usually installation costs to be absorbed even if equipment is to be manually operated. There is no logic to penalizing the robot installation for any more than a differential cost which is inherent in the robotizing process. Therefore, this is nothing but installation. Next is maintenance and periodical overhaul. You are knowing that for any system, whatever exists, it requires maintenance. Therefore, to keep robot functioning properly, there is a need for regular maintenance, a periodic need for more sweeping overhaul, and a random need to correct unscheduled downtime incidents. A rule of thumb for well-designed production equipment operated for 2 shifts continuously is a total annual cost of 10% of the purchase price. This has been borne out for thousands of Unimates. Unimate is the company which manufactures the robot, many of which have enjoyed several overhauls while accumulating as much as 10,000 hours of field usage each. I will tell what is the meaning of this. There is variability, of course, depending upon the demands of the job and the environment. Maintenance costs in a foundry are greater than those experienced in plastic molding. Therefore, you are knowing that in case of two-wheeler or in case of four-wheeler, when they are saying that if your vehicle runs 2000 kilometer, then you have to do the servicing or maintenance of your two-wheeler. Or if your vehicle runs 5000 kilometer, then you have to do the maintenance of this or servicing of this four-wheeler. Similarly, in case of robot, that unit is specified in terms of hours. That is, if robots works for 10,000 hours, then you have to do the servicing or maintenance or periodic overhaul of the robot, whatever it is installed. Therefore, for robot, it is nothing but hours. Now, operating power. Operating power is easily calculated as the product of average power drain and the hours worked. Even with increasing energy cost, this is not a major robot cost. Therefore, operating power you have to consider. Already we have seen operating power means different types of actuators, hydraulic, pneumatic, and this electrical driven robots or battery operated robots. Next is finance. In some cost justification formula, one takes into account the current cost of money. In others, one uses an expected return on investment to establish economic viability. And next is depreciation. Robots, like any other equipment, will exhibit a useful life, and it is ordinary practice to depreciate the investment over this useful life. Since a robot tends to be general purpose equipment, there is ample evidence that 8 to 10 year life running multi-shift is a conservative treatment. Therefore, after up to 8 to 10 years, you can use any robot, and after that you can scrap it. The following observations are also made on potential benefits. Increased productivity. Therefore, when you are using the robot, these are the advantages. First is increased productivity. The prime issue in justifying a robot is increased productivity. Industries are interested in shielding workers from hazardous working conditions, but the key motivator is the increased productivity by introducing a robot that can operate for more than one shift continuously and thereby multiply the production rate. Next is quality improvement. If a job is in a hazardous environment or is physically demanding or is simply mind-numbing, there is a good chance that product quality will suffer according to the mood of a human worker. A robot may well be more consistent on the job and therefore it may produce a higher quality output. Next is increase in throughput. Higher quality naturally means more net output when robot works fast enough to just match a human worker's output. However, there often are circumstances where a robot can work faster to increase gross output as well. The increased throughput is valuable in its own right. Now, next point is robot safety. It is said that robots take over the hazardous jobs, but at the same time, new risks are involved. One thing that must be kept in mind is that a robot is a type of automatic machine, a very sophisticated one, but a machine nevertheless, because it is programmable. If you cannot program the robot, it will not work. Therefore, it is not a machine, it is a programmable automatic machine. It has to be treated with respect like any other piece of equipment. Accidents involving robots can happen just as with other machinery. The robot workplace must be watched to prevent operators from hurting themselves through carelessness, exactly as it is done with other automated machines. Robots, however, may need more attention since their workspace is much larger than the occupied floor space and people may not be aware of the danger of the moving manipulator. Therefore, you have to take care of robot safety also, that is you have to use fencing in the robot area. That figures are there that I will show. Now some of the possible ways the accidents can happen are as follows. The arm of a robot suddenly shot up as the oil pressure source was cut off after the robot ended work. A robot made a motion that was not part of its program. A robot started moving as soon as its power source was switched on, although its interlock conditions were still not ready. When operating alone, a robot destroyed the work it was to weld because of a mistake in program instruction. During hot summer weather, the arm of a robot sprang up, although it had otherwise been working normally. Therefore, these are the some of the possible accidents that can happen. The most common causes of malfunctions are reported to be electrical noise, oil pressure hole troubles, encoder related problems, electronic malfunctions, and mistakes by human workers. Safety measures for using robots must be imposed for the following reasons. For programming, humans must enter the workspace of robot. Monitoring, tool changing, inspection, and other operations involving robots or their peripheral equipment are still done by humans. To correct problems with peripheral equipment, it is necessary to enter the workspace of robots. Since each robot installation is different, each presents unique application problems. In programmed or accidental halt, the operator might enter the workspace to inspect the work or to investigate the trouble. To take care of the issues arising out of the above reasons, the following three aspects must be looked into. First, the design of a reliable control system to prevent malfunctions. Second, the design of the workstation layout. And third, training of plant personnel, that is programmers, operators, and maintenance staff. While the first aspect depends on the robot manufacturer, the other two must be taken care of in the plant itself. The following guidelines can help to remove hazardous situations to robot personnel, factory workers, visitors, and to the robot itself. Now in that first A, the robot working area should be closed by permanent barriers, for example, fences, rolls, and chains. to prevent people from entering the area while the robot is working. The robot's each envelope diagram should be used in planning the barriers. The advantage of fence type barrier is that is also capable of stopping a part which might be released by robot's gripper while in motion. Access gates to the closed working area of the robot should be interlocked with the robot control. Once such a gate is opened, it automatically shuts down the robot system. An illuminated working sign stating robot at work should be automatically turned on when the robot is switched on. This lighted sign warns visitors not to enter into the closed area when the robot is switched on, even if it does not move. Emergency stop buttons must be provided in easily accessible locations as well as on the robot's teach box and control console. Hitting the emergency button stops power to the motors and causes the brakes on each joint to be applied. Pressure sensitive pads can be put on the floor around the robot that when stepped on turn the robot controller off. Emphasize safety practices during robot maintenance. In addition, the arm can be blocked up on a specially built holding device before any service work is started. Great care must be taken during programming with the manual reaching mode. The reach box must be designed so that the robots can move as long as a switch is pressed by the operator's finger. Removing the finger must cease all robot motions. The robot's electrical and hydraulic installation should meet proper standards. This includes efficient grounding of the robot body. Electric cables must be located where they cannot be damaged by the movements of the robot. This is especially important when the robot carries electrical tools such as a spot welding gun. This is H, then this is I. Power cables and signal wires must not create hazards if they are accidentally cut during the operation of the robot. If a robot works in cooperation with the operator, with an operator, for example, when a robot forwards parts to a human assembler, the robot must be programmed to extend its arm to the maximum when forwarding the parts so that the worker can stand beyond the reach of the arm. Mechanical stoppers, interlocks, and sensors can be added to limit the robot's reach envelope when the maximum range is not required. If a wall or a piece of machinery not served by the robot is located inside the reach envelope, the robot can be prevented from entering into this area by adding photoelectric devices, stoppers, or interlock switches in the appropriate spots. There are robots supplied when adjustable mechanical stoppers for this purpose. Now, whatever we have seen, robot safety, see that fencing is there around this robot so that when this robot is in working condition, no one can enter. Only human will enter when this robot work will stop for programming or for replacing some joints or for carrying out some maintenance. See that fencing, this is nothing but robot safety. See that again here fencing is there, welding operation is carried out here. See that sparks are there. This robot is used for carrying out welding operation. Example of barrier protection. See that barrier protection again. Here fencing is there. These doors are there so that when these robots will start working, maybe here drilling operations carried out. See that these doors are closed. Humans or anyone will enter in this fence only when these robots are not working. Another approach states that only robots themselves are able to detect the approach of humans. Therefore, the solution to the safety problem is to provide sensor system that can detect intruders entering the robot area while it is in motion. The American National Bureau of Standards divides the sensor systems into three levels. Level 1, perimeter penetration detection around the workstation. Level 1 systems provide perimeter penetration detection around the robot workstation. These systems provide an indication of an intruder crossing the workstation boundary, but they do not necessarily provide any information regarding the location of the intruder within the workstation. The simplest safety strategy approach might be to use the level 1 system to alert personnel that they are entering a robot workstation and that they should exercise extreme caution, or to provide a preliminary signal to the robot control system to check the status of other safety sensors. Level 2, intruder detection within the workstation. Level 2 systems provide detection in the region between the workstation perimeter and some point on or just inside the working volume of the robot. The actual boundaries of this region are dependent upon the workstation layout and the safety strategy being employed for a particular robot design. In some cases, it may be permissible for personnel to be inside the workstation and perhaps even inside a portion of the accessible working volume of the robot while the robot is operating. In others, it may be necessary to slow down to halt all robot movements as soon as an intruder gets within a specified distance of the robot. Now level 3, intruder detection very near the robot, a safety skin. Level 3 systems provide detection within the robot working volume. This type of system, sometimes referred to as a safety skin, is required for cases where personnel must work close to the robot, such as during teach mode operations. In such cases, the robot must be operational even though someone is within the working volume. The level 3 system must be capable of sensing and avoiding an imminent collision between the robot and the operator in the event of some unexpected movement. Because the distance between the robot and the operator is much less in this case, the response time of the level 3 safety system must be much shorter than for the level 1 or 2 systems. These smaller separation distances also impose a requirement for finer distance resolving capabilities in the level 3 system. Therefore, these are nothing but 3 level sensor systems used in the robot for robot safety and operation. I think this chapter is over now. Thank you very much. Next lecture now I will take one chapter test on this chapter and also will perform next lecture one practical, that is to after 2 lectures we'll start chapter 2.